Chapter 1. The Key in the Journal. I was 32 years old the day the world I knew collapsed into the one I could never have imagined. It began with a key. Bronze, cold, strangely heavy for its size. It turned up one morning on my doorstep in a velvet pouch, with no note, no sender. At first I thought it was a mistake, perhaps left by a neighbor, but when I held it, something stirred inside me, as though the key had always belonged in my hand. That same evening, a second object appeared on my kitchen table. I swear I had locked the door, drawn the curtains, checked twice before I left for work. Yet when I returned, there it was, a leather-bound journal, its cover weathered, its clasp the perfect fit for the bronze key. I didn't hesitate. I turned the key in the lock. The journal opened, its pages blank. Blank, but not for long. I watched, frozen, as lines of ink bled onto the page, forming words in handwriting not my own. You are ready, Rozita. Follow the path. Do not fear the city without a name. I slammed the book shut, but the letters burned into my mind. The city without a name. I didn't understand, and yet a part of me, the restless, unquiet part, longed to obey. Chapter 2. The Nameless City. 3 nights later, I dreamed of a road that curved between hills made of ash. I followed it and woke with black dust on my soles. That was when I understood. This wasn't imagination. The journal was pulling me in. I packed little. A bottle of water, my mother's scarf, and the journal that seemed now to breathe with me. I don't remember how I crossed the threshold, only that one moment I was standing in my apartment, and the next I was walking through gates of corroded iron into streets built from stone that seemed to resist naming. The nameless city. Its walls leaned inward, whispering. Streets curled back on themselves. Windows blinked with dull candlelight, though I saw no people inside. Everything smelled of old paper, of ink, of dust that had never known air. And then I saw him, the man in the cloak, standing at the far end of the street, his hood low, his hand gloved in black. He did not approach, nor did he flee. He only raised one hand and pointed, not at me, but at the journal. I opened it. The pages fluttered, ink forming words again. Trust him, but not too far. When I looked up, he was gone. Chapter 3. The Library of Forgotten Stories. Days blurred, or perhaps it was only hours. Time moved differently in that city. I followed fragments of writing the journal gave me. Arrows, maps, single words. Each led deeper into winding streets, until at last I stood before a massive structure. The library. Columns rose like petrified trees. The doors hung open, breathing shadows. Inside, the air was thick with parchment and whispers. Every shelf groaned under the weight of books whose spines carried no titles. When I brushed one with my fingers, it shivered and hissed. Every book is a life, said a voice. I turned. The cloaked man stood a few steps behind me, his hood still low. His voice was neither kind nor cruel, only inevitable. Lives forgotten, abandoned, unwritten. This is where they come. This is where yours may end, or begin again. My hand tightened around the journal. Why me? He tilted his head. Because you listened when the words appeared. Before I could answer, the shelves around us groaned louder, and one book leapt from its place, falling open at my feet. Its pages were blank, until ink bled across them, writing my name. I picked it up. My breath caught. The book was writing my life as I lived it. Every word I spoke, every step I took, appeared instantly upon the page. And then it stopped. The last line read, She will choose a door. Chapter 4. The 3 doors. The cloaked man led me through corridors lined with shelves that whispered my name. At the end stood 3 doors. The first was oak, carved with leaves and vines. Warm light glowed beneath. The second was black, polished, so reflective I saw my own face distorted in it. No light seeped through. The third was white, plain, almost invisible against the wall, yet it hummed faintly, like air before a storm. The journal trembled in my hands, its pages fluttering until a line of ink appeared. Every choice is binding. Only one leads forward. The others will hold you forever. My mouth was dry. Which one? I whispered. The cloaked man said nothing. He only stepped back, fading until he was little more than shadow. I looked at the oak door, safe warm. The black door, dangerous, yet magnetic. The white door, nothing and everything. My hand shook as I reached. Chapter 5, The Shadow. My fingers closed on the handle of the black door. The wood burned cold against my skin, but it yielded easily, swinging inward without a sound. Darkness spilled into the corridor, swallowing the faint glow of the library's torches. I hesitated only a heartbeat before stepping through. The door shut behind me. I was no longer in the library. Instead, I stood in a cavernous hall with walls like mirrors, not polished, but liquid, rippling with each breath I took. My reflection stared back at me from every side, dozens of Rositas, eyes wide, lips parted in confusion. One of them moved. Not in sync with me, not a reflection at all. She stepped out from the liquid wall, and as she did, the mirrors stilled. My other reflections froze, leaving only two figures in the hall, myself and the shadow of me. Her hair was the same as mine, but black as pitch. Her eyes, darker, with no whites, only endless pupils. Her mouth curved into a smile I had never worn. "I am what you've tried to bury," she said, though her lips did not move. Her voice was inside me, a second thought layered over my own. "The anger you deny, the fears you smother, the desires you've locked away. I am everything you refuse to write in your story." I shook my head. "You're not me. Not yet." She tilted her head, mirroring my gesture perfectly. "But I will be, unless you accept me." Chapter 6, The Duel of Selves. She lunged. Her hand struck like a blade, sharp enough to cut the air. I barely dodged, stumbling backward across the hall. My journal slipped from my grasp, clattering to the ground, pages fluttering open. Ink bled rapidly, scrawling across the paper. Fight or embrace. Denial is death. The shadow raised her hand again. I snatched the journal, swinging it like a shield. Her strike landed on the leather cover, and pain shot up my arm as though she'd struck my own bones. "You cannot fight me forever," she whispered. "Every wound I take, you feel. Every strike you land, you bleed." And it was true. My palm was already bruising, though she had not touched me directly. I realized the truth then. To destroy her would be to destroy myself. So I stopped. I lowered the journal. My arms fell to my sides. She froze mid-step, confusion flickering in her black eyes. "I won't fight you," I said. My voice shook, but I forced the words out. "I accept you. You are me. My shadow, my silence, my rage, my hunger. I will not deny you anymore." For the first time, her smile faltered. She trembled, light rippling through her dark form. Slowly, she stepped closer, and instead of striking, she pressed her palm against mine. Her skin was ice, yet it did not hurt. The mirrors around us shattered, shards falling soundlessly, dissolving before they touched the ground. And then she was gone. No, not gone. Inside me, my chest felt both heavier and lighter, as though I had been holding my breath my entire life and only now exhaled. The journal lay open in my hands. New words appeared. Holness grants passage. The story is yours to write. Chapter 7, The Door of Storms. The darkness dissolved. I was back in the library, standing before the three doors. The black one now hung ajar, smoke curling from its edges. The oak door still glowed warmly, the white door still hummed faintly. But something had changed. The cloaked man stood once again at the end of the corridor. This time his hood was back, and though his features blurred like unfinished ink, I could feel his gaze on me. "You chose well," he said. "And poorly. You survived, but the choice remains." "What do you mean?" My voice sounded different, fuller, deeper, as though it carried two tones. "The doors do not close until you step through one fully. Black has given you yourself. Oak will give you peace. White," he paused, as though listening to something I could not hear. "White will give you possibility. But once you walk through, there is no return." The journal shook in my hands. Pages flipped, stopping at a line that had not been there before. One ending is comfort, another is silence. The last is unknown. Choose. My legs trembled. I thought of the oak door, safety, warmth, perhaps even happiness. I thought of silence, a rest I sometimes longed for. But then I thought of possibility, the word that hummed like the storm beyond the white door. My hand rose. I pushed the white door open. Chapter 8, The Threshold. Light poured through the white door, blinding, weightless. I stepped across the threshold, and the library, the cloaked man, the other doors, all vanished like smoke scattered by the wind. I stood on a plain of clouds. Beneath my feet, vapor swirled, yet it held me as solid ground. Above, a sky stretched with no sun, no stars, only shifting auroras of silver and violet. The air vibrated, humming in tune with my heartbeat. The journal floated from my hand, pages fluttering, glowing faintly. For the first time, no words appeared. Blank, waiting. Where am I? I whispered. The answer came not in words, but in sensation, possibility. A vast field of it, endless, terrifying. The plain stretched into eternity, dotted with shapes, doors, arches, staircases rising into nowhere, bridges that began and ended in mist. Each one shimmered like glass. Every path was mine to take. Every path was mine to lose. I turned in circles, dizzy, overwhelmed. My chest ached with the weight of choice. Then I heard footsteps. Chapter 9. The Return of the Cloaked Man. He emerged from the mist, cloak trailing, had drawn back enough for me to glimpse fragments of a face that never quite resolved, a cheekbone, a shadowed eye, a mouth that seemed carved from smoke. You've reached the threshold, he said, his voice no longer inevitable, but almost gentle. Few ever do. I clutched my arms around myself. What is this place? Heaven? Purgatory? No. This is the unwritten. He gestured at the infinite bridges, doors, staircases. Every story that could be, every choice unmade, every self not lived. It is all here waiting. And I can pick one. He inclined his head. Or create one. But know this. Once you choose, the other paths vanish. There is no return. To write one life is to abandon the rest. My throat closed. I thought of my old life, the apartment, the job that dulled me, the mornings that blurred together. I thought of the city without a name, the shadow now part of me, the weight of her anger and hunger, and how, strangely, I no longer feared them. I don't know if I'm ready, I said. He almost smiled. No one ever is. Chapter 10. The Final Vision. The journal hovered closer, pages glowing, and at last ink began to form. But it was different this time. Not one line, not a command, but 3 visions spreading across the paper like paintings. The first showed me back in my own apartment, sunlight slanting through curtains. A warm cup of coffee. A smile. A quiet life. Safe, small, but real. The second showed me wandering endless ruins, a crown of shadows on my head, the nameless city bowing before me. Power, but loneliness. The third showed only a silhouette of myself walking into a storm, lightning splitting the sky, uncharted land ahead. No face, no end, only forward. The ink bled into words beneath each image. Return. Rule. Risk. My hands shook. Tears pricked my eyes. And if I don't choose? The cloaked man's gaze grew heavy. Then you dissolve, like all unwritten tales. Chapter 11. Embrace. I sank to my knees, the journal balanced on my lap, my reflection flickering faintly on its glowing pages. For the first time, I heard my shadow's voice inside me, soft, steady. We were not born to hide. We were not born to bow. We were born to burn. And another voice, mine, trembling. But what if it breaks me? Then at least we lived. I rose slowly, clutching the journal. The cloaked man stepped aside as I turned toward the storm rising beyond the horizon, a wall of silver and black, lightning crackling, thunder that felt like a drumbeat beneath my ribs. I walked forward. The bridges beneath my feet shook, but did not break. Mist swirled higher, wrapping around my waist, my shoulders. I felt the shadow inside me surge, not as an enemy, but as a second heartbeat, steady, fierce. The journal's pages turned white hot, ink burst across them, writing as I walked. She chooses the unknown. She chooses the storm. She chooses to write, even when she cannot see the ending. The cloaked man's voice drifted behind me. So be it, Rozita. May your story be terrible and beautiful. May it be yours. Chapter 12. Open ending. The storm swallowed me. Wind roared, tearing at my clothes, my skin, my very thoughts. The journal burned in my hands, until it dissolved into sparks that sank into my chest. My heart flared with fire, with ink, with infinite possibilities. I saw fragments flashing through the lightning. Cities I might rule, oceans I might drown in, loves I might lose, victories I might claim. 1,000 lives, 1,000 deaths. None certain, all waiting. I screamed, not in fear, but in exultation. The storm screamed with me. And then, silence. White light. A single page before me, blank. My hand lifted, trembling, and words formed in my own handwriting for the first time. This is where I begin.